Good evening, everyone. System Chalk here with the 28th episode of Cultist Simulator, playing the Bright Young Thing legacy as David Ellison. So we've hit a little bit of a wall in terms of our investigations just because of a lack of funds, but then we went onto the art scene and experienced tremendous success. So we're going to, abuse the privilege. We are going to be losing our reputation soon anyway, so we might as well make the most of it. And then hopefully we're going to be able to cash in. The good news is that if for whatever reason we get a staleness, well, not for whatever reason, we've had a good run of it. So if we do get staleness this time around, we've got the passion in the chamber. So not only will we be able to do another passion, or hopefully do a passion painting that removes the staleness, but we're going to be able to throw some reputation at that right away. Of course, there's two reasons why we don't want the notoriety to get picked up. One, we don't want evidence, but number two, it is our better source of financing. So we'll see we'll see how far we can go with this. We are also currently working on improving our knock lore. This is so that we can do the commission for Poppy, and then at some point I'd like to talk with Count Jannings about getting another commission, but the talk verb is currently occupied by my summons. We'll see how long that goes. I mean, obviously right now I'm getting the rest of the expeditions, and we now have the unnumbered stones. So what I'm going to do here, because it's not clear when we're going to be able to resummon the Callagine, I'm actually going to take the time to do as many of these forbidden epics as I can. Just so I don't need to worry about them later. Now, there is a danger. I haven't talked about this as often as I'd like. There is actually a danger with doing expeditions the way that I'm setting them up. If for whatever reason I wind up with a rival, the rival will occasionally go and try to raid a vault. And so one of the ways that you can inconvenience rivals is by just not having vaults on the table. The drawback to doing that, though, is if you're like me, you kind of like to queue up a bunch of different expeditions at once, and that's just simply because it's easier to have a couple of summons that you put in, and normally inside of Cultist Simulator, it's not that hard. Like, I need to be careful in terms of how I say this, because people are at different stages in terms of learning Cultist Simulator. But for the most part, once you feel comfortable with the game, funds are not that hard to come by. There are a number of different ways that you can do it. I've, like most of my playthroughs, decided to impose a few limitations on the sorts of things that I'm going to do as a character. But if you aren't like me, I would say that it's not that hard to make money in this game. And in fact, there have been a few playthroughs where I'll take a really, really good job. I will have just an appalling amount, in the bank. And at that point, it doesn't even really matter if I ever, use the work verb again, because there's just so much. Well, that's probably overdoing it, because I take a long time to play the game too. But certainly work feels like an optional task. So even the threat of losing a job, in the case of Cultist Simulator, if you go down certain paths, the practical risk to you is quite low, unless you're sort of going out of your way to spend too much money or to really take your time going through things. The way we're playing this time around, does create the pinch, and it makes things interesting. That's one of the reasons why I put these limitations in addition to sort of role-playing reasons. The colors of night. I could spend money on better paints, or perhaps I could find more exotic pigments. But yeah, sorry, if it wasn't clear what I was talking about, it is possible to get rivals in this game. If you do have rivals, leaving a lot of expeditions on the table mean that they can potentially take those expeditions from you. And if they're not Karashim, the Unnumbered Stones, or any of the other ones that have the white background as opposed to the blue background means that it's a unique location. Essentially, you're running the risk that you will lose those locations to random events. Whereas if you put them out one at a time, you're effectively consuming them before the game can pull them out from under you. But if you are doing the way that I've been approaching expeditions so far, having this 1 minute period in between expeditions so that you can find the next vault to send the summons to. That's kind of inconvenient just because, you're losing a minute of your summons. Each expedition means that you're either replacing them pretty frequently or you're tying up your verbs for other activities. I probably didn't need to repeat that, but I don't know if I was being all that clear. So 51 seconds left for the talk. I may eventually decide, hey, it's worth it. We'll go on another expedition, but at the minimum, I want to resummon the Callagine, and because we're going to be using the work slot for the foreseeable future, we're just going to keep these two locked in a conversation with each other and fill out our locations in the land beyond the forest. Those stories that have been forbidden to us are the ones most apt for us to read. William Gore. So, restlessness here. Whether I do the passion painting or the reputation painting, I definitely want to turn that into something useful. Honestly, I'm only going through the motions. The quality of my work will no doubt suffer. The painted river runs from a great chamber near the white door, far through the mansus, to its far edge, where it enters a painted delta of far cloud. I voyaged half its length last night with a stern-faced captain beneath a rust-red sail. As the clouds rose before us, the sailors raised a yearning shanty and close-hauled their sails to best use the painted wind. And all the while, the captain and I discoursed on the secrets of the House of the Sun. So the study is going to require an erudition for the challenge. This is a puzzle with missing pieces. I might find those pieces in odd corners of scholarship. And once again, we return to the stag door. Eventually, I will do something a little bit more exciting than it, but this is a somewhat safe option for me now. And we got competent work in the end after all. Still no staleness. My recent work is considered notable. I've exhibited the latest paintings publicly. Surely someone will buy something. Now, unfortunately, we only made the money for the paints back. But we will throw the... that's not the one I want to use. Throw everything back into a reputation painting, and we will see how... We'll see if we still have the money trouble. I do consider a return of 1 when I've paid for paintings to be a net negative, because you lose the time and so you still need to pay the rent. Oh. I feel so bad about that. Okay, let's go back. So I still feel like a clown for just watching the Callagine die that way, but we do have the Rising Heat, and we've got 2 knock influences, so I still want to make sure that my painting is in good order, but, I don't want to... I'm not going to be in a particular panic over the... I'm not going to be in a panic over the state of... Nice. Okay, but that's a lot of staleness. So, let's try the subtle flaw. Oh. Significant forge. Okay. So it makes me feel bad to do this, right? I kind of want the passion on cooldown as soon as possible, but I'm going to lose the influence if I don't touch it. So I dreamt of the mansus behind the white door, of the great space above the orchard, the space that overlooks the bounds, the space where the vagabond once painted her river. Painted ships passed upon the painted river, and I met the painted eyes of a painted captain. She saluted, and the motion was like the layered movement of clouds. The sail of the ship was amber, and the captain's eyes the green of new barley, and the river aquamarine. Now that I'm awake, I see those colors still. All right. Not much in the way of fascination cures right now. Season of Sickness is coming up next, though, and this vitality is basically dead. So I think in prep, our trips to the well have normally only paid off when we... they've really only paid off when we're in desperate need, but we'll see if we can get an early vitality to simplify our lives. Money's going to be getting a bit tight, though. I think what I'll probably do, we'll talk with the Percussagant one more time. If we do wind up with a Callagine, we'll throw it into the talk verb, and then we'll go on at least one expedition. All shall be opened. When we open a thing, we learn its nature. I've deepened my understanding of the lore that opens, which we call by its aspect, knock. The consent of wounds. To open certain ways, one must first open oneself. This practice outlines that opening in the name of the Mother of Ants. All right. So, I guess we think a little bit about what we want to try and do with the study verb. So if we try with winter, I think there's going to be a price to pay for that. So for that we would need erudition, which we have, and then there is the practical experiment, grim lesson. So that would need dread or silent intensity, neither of which we have and neither of which I really want to get at the moment. So winter's out. I could try the forbidden epic. So what are we looking at here? For that we would need the glimmering, it looks like, and erudition. So we have both, but this glimmering isn't really going to be around for a very long time, and I'm not going to finish a painting in time. Well, actually, that's not entirely true. There's really not a lot for me to lose here. So let's try moving up the Forbidden Epic and see what happens. Study the histories. History is less certain than we are taught. I can learn from the study of its blurred edges. Okay, as mentioned, we're going to talk to the Percussagant again, hoping that the Callagine can get tossed in. Voivode Citadel. We'll read the descriptions as we go on the various expeditions. And another season of Ardors. Alright, a rebellious spirit. So, yeah, this is a tricky call. I don't know if I want to risk it or... You know what, let's go for the risk. So many things rise from the well in the wood. Last night it was a swarm with wormy roots. The trees clustered and whispered. Perhaps they were welcoming the influx. I found a sleeping soul ensnared in the roots, and I helped them struggle free. When they wake, I will recall their face as I do theirs. Actually, it did occur to me that I can probably summon a raw prophet with the fascination. I can't remember how much moth you need for those, but I feel like it's primarily Grail focused. Callagines are really helpful though. Like the number of times that we've run into Forge and Moth works pretty well for us. I don't know. I always feel that the risks you run when you use Passion are too high. Oh, actually, I'm not going to use the Passion for the simple reason that if I do, I'm not going to be able to do the painting that I want to do. So, reason it is. And that just gives us a reason to go back to the Stag Door. Although it does mean that I'm leaving the sickness. And we might get lucky with the notoriety. The Suppression Bureau may wind up passing us by. It's gone. We are safe. Alright, so, roundabout way of making it happen, but we will throw the 4 passion in. We don't have a restlessness, so I'm going to do a painting of Dorothy in hopes that that provokes a vitality. Now we need erudition for knowledge challenge. Now at this point we're just hoping that the glimmering for the painting shows up in time. I suspect that this notoriety is going to vanish before we can make use of it. So the trembling heat is helpful for summoning the Callagine, and I think that's what the doctor orders. So Gearby was weeping again. I scooped up his molten tears in my cupped palm. In the dream, my skin peeled and blistered, but only in the dream. So we have what we need for resummoning the Callagine. At this point, I think I'm going to try the wood again. Now I pass between scar-barked trees. The moon passes behind branches, though her fingers remain in my hair. I'm stumbling over roots now. It is tempting to drop to all fours to avoid the low branches. Pale wings move deep in the night. I've got magnificent work. So we only lost 1 staleness from that, but we did get 2 funds, so it's really hard to complain about an outcome like that. More importantly, we got our glimmering just in time for our study. I don't know why I thought the percussivant was my study, but there you go. We did get a fascination for my trouble, though, so there's that. I don't think I'm going to turn that into a restlessness. I think we might maybe just do an induction. Okay, so we're at the point now where... Oh no, sorry. With the work slot, I want to summon the Callagine again. So Sunset Rite, offering... We need a bit of winter and a bit of knock. Forge the Smoky Spirit summoning, winter for its binding. It must know who will rule it. So 2 minutes before we have trouble. This is a puzzle with missing pieces. I might find those pieces in odd corners of scholarship. So the easy answer here is just to study my health. Kuznetsov endowment. It's going to be really weird if we wind up running out of locations in the land beyond the forest. I would have guessed that we had more than enough, but clearly the game thinks otherwise. Okay, I don't have too much to worry about with Dread right now. The well in the wood is never dry, but it is never clear. One night it might heave with crawling roots, on another it will pulse with bright moss. On nights of the full moon its waters are choked with the fat dappled bodies of moths. Last night I saw it brimming with dark and viscous blood. Gelatinous shreds drifted on its surface, clots of grail matter. I can't remember if I've said this before, but I do enjoy the Skeleton Songs podcast. I am a pretty bad listener at it because I don't know why I'm using the open soul to dream. I'm a pretty bad listener of it just because I know... Wow, that was really careless of me. Watchman's Light. My curiosity is becoming a physical need. My eyes will be thresholds. It is almost time to perform the work and begin the changes. But I must have enough lantern aspect. But yeah, so I like the series, but I really do not watch them when they first come out, and so I suspect the metrics for the listening well, I'm just one person, so it's probably not the end of the world, but I have listened to all of them, and if you do enjoy Cultist Simulator and following Weather Factory, you're probably already aware of it, but if you're not, on your favorite podcasting app, I use Apple Podcasts, you know, just do a search for Skeleton Songs, and you get to hear Alexis and Lottie talk about all things, not really Cultist Simulator. They tend to talk about things that they're interested in. They can be literary, they can be gaming, but they really work well together in terms of a duo. So like there's I don't know if this will be helpful, and I'm really not in a position to be giving content creator advice to people, but there is there's like a trick, or there's a pattern where if you are trying to, like if you're, especially if you're starting out, but I actually think that this works really well if you're even, you know, if you're an established content creator, one of the ways to trick yourself into talking more on a broadcast is to broadcast with someone. And what you may notice is that some developers who do regular broadcasts, so this can be a largish publisher like Paradox Interactive, but this could also be a smaller developer like Brace Yourself Games. What you'll notice is that for their official broadcasts, there's usually 2 people. And, you know, it varies in terms of who the people are, but I would say by and large, there's usually someone from the community management team or some sort of marketing team, basically someone who's used to sort of the outward-facing role. And then there's usually somebody who works in production, whether it's a producer or somebody who, you know, when I say production is actually a specific department to my understanding, but they like somebody who is a little bit closer to the creation of the underlying object. If I sound overly cautious in terms of how I'm saying that, I do not want to be one of those people who tries and suggests that the marketing and community management efforts are somehow not game development. For those of you who believe that, I will only point you to the vast number of articles talking about how, you know, people made a really good game and nobody bought it, to point out how very important getting the word out about a game is, and making sure that, you know, information is communicated well, that the community is you know, treating each other with respect. These are not things that happen by, you know, automatically or by mistake. But in any case, with that in mind, and I think the 2 of them are Weather Factory. Like the reason why it's the 2 of them is that the 2 of them are Weather Factory. They're the co-founders. They are the prime movers. There's, you know, it would be weird only to have one on a podcast. But with that in mind, the general rule of having people to interact with generally produces better broadcasts, and that's absolutely true for Skeleton Songs. But in any case, I'm pretty sure that specific dream, the Clots of Grail matter, I believe has been referenced in Skeleton Songs, and I'm pretty sure the conversation that's mentioned, I am not going to say what the conversation was, but that's actually probably the other one that I should have asked during the AMA. Anyways, that's a really, really long way of just recommending that you all pay attention to Skeleton Songs. But I do have my Callagine now, so not all of the Forge's children are bright. Its offcuts and its bastards gather in the bounds like hammer scale in the cracks of a smithy floor. Here comes one now. So let's bring the Callagine in for a chat. 83 seconds left on our affliction. But as I said, we are going to do a passion painting because it's a priority. That means I've got 40.5, which is the exact time it's going to take me to do the dream. So I don't see any situation in which I'm able to make it to the wood, and that probably means I'm going to need to spend some money on, well, nope, I might be able to use the funds. It depends how long it takes me 30 seconds. Yeah, we're paying for medicine. Nothing. My words cease like sand in a glass. There may be like a last-minute percussivant vitality, but I wouldn't. At this point, I wouldn't bank on it. Ah, come on. Now I get it because it's the. Yeah. Okay, and we've got Foxley Meadows, so this is good news. This tells me that I can combine another 2 Forbidden Epics for the next level. So what do I want to do with the talk verb? I think actually in this case I'm going to search the city myself. Using this health potentially gives me another opportunity for vital. Well, hang on, I don't need to do that. I can just use Dorothy. Crowded thoroughfares by day, a fog-wrapped labyrinth by night. I'll set my minions to searching for opportunities. Again, we're using passion here, so I don't want to pay for paints. And another season of despair coming up, so that's 2 reminiscences that I can work with. I've increased my knowledge of the secret histories behind the one we know. I don't think we're going to have the glimmering on time, but we are going to do a painting, so we will grab a couple of these forgotten epics, move them up. We can use the unresolved ambiguity with the explore verb. And again, not doing as well financially as I would have thought we were, but that's because we got hit with 3 staleness unexpectedly. Utter focus. All that I am is here. Okay, more unusual places, but no vitality to speak of. Ooh, Herschel's Nightmare. That could not have come at a worse time. And I can't get rid of it through getting rid of the fascination because I will lose my health. But there's some good news. I got some money for my painting. Okay, so we're out of options as far as the vitality is concerned. As far as the work slot is concerned, we at least can do a commission. So here, let's do Forge. No real reason for picking Forge, it's just available to me. This may be useful in a commission. There it is. I've levered up floorboards and wriggled down snugly. Now I'm compressed beneath them like a hidden corpse. The air stinks of hot dust. My mouth is full of splinters, but this is the space below. I don't remember getting a subtle fracture from that, but so be it. We will now cure my affliction with traditional methods. The medicine is dark and bitter as tar. It would be easy to suspect I'm being poisoned. Okay, moving on. I am gonna use the unresolved ambiguity. Rending mountains, it has been said, tear the flesh of history. It has generally only been said by people like Christopher Alopoli, but still they are a good region to find the places that daylight history does not recognize. Okay, now I want to think a little bit about my percussivant in Callageen, because I'm past the point where talking with them is being productive. I can't send them on an expedition, though, so let's do that one more time. Also, I don't know why I said I didn't have the glimmering. It's sitting there waiting for me. Okay, Season of Ambition's coming up. Again, that's a restlessness for a painting, and we should... Actually, I don't think we'll have the passion in time, because I'm going to use the passion for something else. And this is an erudition challenge. Okay, always happy to finish the manuscript. We're going to go straight into the painting. The reason I kind of try to crash into this stuff as quickly as I can is just I want to, where I can, I want to be able to, have the passion on cooldown so I can use it for other things. The room grows close and stale. Time to get up. Now, just a quick word, because every once in a while this comes up. I was talking about the challenge of not being able to generate dread, and I, of course, had a situation where I was struggling to get my health. I am fully aware that if you let your health decline into decrepitude, that you can then beg, and that's a way of generating dread. The big thing for me is that I don't like the idea of consciously... Well, okay. In most circumstances, I do not like the idea of consciously doing harmful things to your character to achieve a particular end. And again, for the sake... So if I'm playing someone who is reluctant to go to Glover and Glover, wants to make it as an artist, the idea of begging, surely you would explore the option of that job that you don't want to do before you resort to begging in the street. So that's a big motivator for this particular character. But in general, the reason why I give a slight out on willingly do terrible things is you have all seen me play well, maybe not all, but a number of you have seen me do the priest legacy, so it's fair to say that I will allow bad things to happen to my character. But yeah, it is one of the cases where it's actually it's a tricky one. I remember somewhat clearly, not even somewhat clear. I clearly remember. This is a feedback forum that I did in Cultist Simulator's life, and just sort of talking about how health was working, how vitality seemed to be working, and how just basically some of the stuff didn't really seem to fit and make a whole lot of sense. And in the response, it sort of explained what the overall plan was, and the some of the things that would be changing, and one of the things that was mentioned was decrepitude, which I thought was kind of a neat way of handling it. That, and there's actually some neat ways that Cultist Simulator does handle decrepitude. But I think it's also fair to say that one of the big challenges that I think Cultist Simulator can run into with its players is that having something like decrepitude and having something like the consequence of a choice or maybe a lack of knowledge that you had in an early playthrough, and then having supernatural means of overcoming it is a really interesting idea in the game, and it's something that I'm kind of excited is present inside of the game. But it's also fair to say that once you understand how the game works, and once decrepitude becomes a tool, it's a little weird. I think one of the really neat things about Cultist Simulator is how you are able to transform negatives into things that become helpful. So the idea that you can channel your despair or your fascination into various rituals. I won't say it's a favorite line, but I think one of the lines I keep using over and over again from Cultist Simulator is even dread has its uses. And it communicates a certain way of looking at the world and creativity and essentially what you are doing and trying to accomplish. I think that communicates something worth considering. Again, I mean, don't take your life lessons from video games, but if you are going to be trying to get a particular way of looking at the world, you can do worse than Cultist Simulator, let's say. Decrepitude, it's a little bit harder to see in that light. Again, there's a lot of... I sort of feel like there's a lot of ways, there's a lot of stops on the way to like homelessness station or begging on the street station. and to turn decrepitude, like first of all willingly getting decrepitude, but then also turning that into a machine that you use to bring down your fascination, as opposed to the thing that you do to try and make sure that you don't starve, it's a little strange. But I think it's also fair to say, I'm trying to remember if this was in an AMA or a tweet or something like that, but there was some discussion about the tendency that I have, and it seems to be a broader tendency among players, that you'll have things like Rite of the Crucible Soul, Rite of the Watchman's Sorrow, but in reality you're going to be doing most of like things like the Sunset Rite, and then the it's not Vagabond's map, is it? It's Vagabond. It's the, anyways, the influence rituals. Excuse me. Those those wind up being used far more than any of the other ones. And it's, entirely based on, it's not a mystery in terms of why players do that. It's seemingly a rather well-known tendency among players, but sometimes that's the only thing that's something that you can really only learn through experience. At the very least, like, even if it's well known about players, it's not the thing that's going to leap out to you as something that you need to address or think about in creation. So whether decrepitude falls under that, or whether there's a point that's being made about decrepitude, I'm not sure, because I personally don't really do that option very much. Or at all, actually. I don't think I've ever used decrepitude to try and tranquilize fascination. But on the other hand, too, like, I'm spending my time complaining about it as an option. The other one I always feel a little bad about is Sulochana being used as a way to extend the life of certain things. I think I have used it on playthroughs before, but I feel bad about it, because if you're using it in terms of things that, like, I don't know, there's just something about the idea that there is a limitation in terms of the things that you can put into most of the slots, and the fact that Sulochana works a bit differently just feels a little weird for me. And it could be that that's the purpose of Sulochana, to be honest, but like I said, it just feels weird. Anyways, I don't have a location yet for exploration. We're going to leave that empty. In fact, let's just do a summary. So I will, once the study is done, we'll grab the last of the secret histories I have to bring me in past the Rending Mountains. Maybe I will upgrade the Furtive Truth, the Forgotten Chronicle, and the Forbidden Epic, but that's a very low priority. I essentially have to not have anything else for the study verb to do. I think I'm going to try and do at least one expedition. But I'm still limited in terms of my cash flow. The important thing too is that once I start moving to the continent and beyond, that's when I'm going to need 3 or 4 funds to get through. It's nice to have a reserve, right? Because if something goes wrong, the last thing you want to do is spend the funds and then find out you have to go through the entire expedition again because you couldn't support it to the end. So there's a few things that I'm going to need to keep my eye on, but I think we're going to be able to get through it. The nice thing will be to get rid of the... it'll be nice to get rid of the staleness, and at that point I will be deciding, can I make enough money with painting to go on these expeditions, or do I take the open explore slot and I start selling things like Kerner and Goat and the Iron Spintra. I always have the option of selling the Iron Spintra, but it's a little bit like using Poppy. Like, you get to use Poppy. So, like, with Poppy, you get to use her once, and you get 9 funds. And then when you spend those 9 funds, if you need more, you're going to have to work your job. And if your job's not turning out, it's nice to have one other background. And if I just get in a regular habit of dipping into the Spintra, then I'm going to run in, then, when I really need it, then I'm just not going to have anything there. Or I'm going to have to give up something like a bronze or a silver, which would be used to repair the mirror. So that's my rough ordering of priorities. I'm probably still being a bit of a hoarder, because in total I've got, was it 1927? I've got 27 objects. That's going to take a while for me to work through, but not a point that's worth extending the... I'm already 10 minutes over, so I think I'll meditate on that, and we'll be able to deal with that next week. As always, thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a nice weekend. I'm probably going to have to get some recording. I feel like I should try and get 2 weeks of recordings in, just because there are some other things that I want to get done, but we'll leave that to ourselves. I would like to try and get on another big run of expeditions for next week, so we'll see whether or not I can pull that off. But I did promise I was gonna run off. So again, thank you everybody for watching, and we will see you next week. Please take care.